Chosen one, there is a holy interruption unfolding in your life at this very moment, and heaven itself is the one who initiated it. You are not here by accident or random chance. You were summoned into this moment by divine appointment, drawn into a timeline where God himself is unveiling what has already been written over you before the foundation of the world was laid. Anointed one, the signs appearing around you are not imagination or wishful thinking. They are confirmation that the God who restores what was lost, the God who accelerates what was delayed, the God who lifts without warning, has stepped into your story with supernatural intent and purpose. You are standing at the threshold of a breakthrough that was reserved for an appointed time, just as the ancient prophet wrote that the vision will surely come and it will not delay. What looked permanently lost is being returned to you. What felt eternally denied is being rewritten by divine hand. What you thought was completely over is rising again under the weight of divine favor moving in your direction. Chosen one, heaven is shifting outcomes that seem fixed, aligning steps that felt random, and preparing a transfer of blessing that cannot be stopped by any human or demonic force, because your future has already been safeguarded in the courts of heaven and in the quiet places of your spirit. Even now at this very moment, you can feel the truth of it settling like a weight you cannot explain but cannot deny. Not every reminder from heaven arrives through audible words or dramatic signs. Sometimes it comes as something still and steady, waiting to be found just beneath the surface of this present moment. Chosen one, there is a sacred reason your spirit has been feeling that quiet pressure, that subtle stirring that refuses to let you settle comfortably where you currently are. Something holy is moving toward you with intention and precision, something that has been building behind the veil long before you ever prayed desperately for help, long before you ever knew how deeply heaven had already committed itself to your future success and restoration. Anointed one, what is unfolding around you right now is not coincidence or lucky timing. It is divine orchestration timed with the same precision God used when he spoke light into darkness at the beginning of creation. You are standing in a threshold moment, a Kairos moment, and heaven is funding what comes next with resources you cannot yet see but will soon experience. I want you to hear this with your whole soul and let it penetrate every doubt you have carried. There are seasons in life when you are merely surviving, pushing forward with sheer willpower, enduring one day at a time, trying desperately to make sense of closed doors and silent nights when prayers seem to echo back unanswered. And then there are seasons, sacred and rare seasons, when God steps in with power and rewrites everything at once, shifting your entire reality in ways you can never orchestrate with your own strength or strategy. I have lived long enough, prayed long enough, been humbled deeply enough to recognize the difference between these two seasons. And chosen one, the atmosphere around you right now carries the same holy weight I have personally felt before every major breakthrough in my own life. The same shift that saved me from complete collapse when I had nothing left. The same shift that lifted me in ways I could not have orchestrated even if I had possessed infinite wisdom and resources. That is a precise shift hovering over you now, waiting to manifest in ways that will leave no doubt about heaven's involvement. Anointed one, everything the enemy tried to use to limit you has now become evidence against him in the courts of heaven. Every trap he set, every delay he orchestrated, every dismissal you endured, every moment when someone with influence underestimated your worth and overlooked your potential, God has gathered all of it into his hands like evidence in a legal case, not to shame you with the painful past, but to resource you for the glorious future. Heaven does not just restore what you lost and leave it at that. Heaven multiplies what you endured, turning your pain into provision, your tears into testimony, your setbacks into setup for unprecedented advancement. I learned this truth in my own wilderness seasons, I lived through moments where I genuinely thought lack had spoken the final word over my life. Moments where the bank account was empty, the opportunities were gone, and the future looked impossibly bleak. But just when I had absolutely nothing left to hold on to, when my fingers were slipping from the last thread of hope, God reminded me that the vision will surely come just as it is written in ancient scripture, not fast according to my impatient timeline, not slow according to my fears, but appointed according to his perfect wisdom. Chosen one, your appointed time is approaching like a rising storm of goodness, alignment, and supernatural provision that will sweep across every area of your life. You may not see the full expression of it yet with your natural eyes, but you can feel it stirring in your spirit, like a shift in the wind before the clouds move, like a calm that settles mysteriously before dawn breaks across the horizon. This is only the beginning of the unfolding. The fullness is still ahead, building momentum, gathering force, preparing to manifest in your visible reality. That restless feeling you've been experiencing, that sense that something is about to change, that unexplainable knowing that your season is shifting even when circumstances look the same. That is not intuition or emotional optimism. That is the inner witness of someone who's been marked, chosen, and set apart for divine elevation that will shock everyone who thought they had you figured out. Anointed one. Heaven is reviewing your endurance with careful attention. Heaven is examining your obedience in seasons when no one was watching. Heaven is measuring your character development through trials that refined you. Heaven is noting your refusal to give up when every logical reason screamed that you should have collapsed, quit, walked away, or compromised. And because of that proven faithfulness, something rare and powerful is being released in your direction at this very moment. It is a supernatural provision that cannot be explained by hard work alone or human strategy. It is something I have witnessed only a few times in my life. And when it comes, it always comes suddenly, catching people by surprise, arriving when least expected but most needed. I want you to think back carefully to the times you held on by a thread, so thin you wondered if it would snap. The nights you tried desperately to sleep, but felt the oppressive weight of what you lacked pressing against your mind like a physical force. The quiet places where you asked God with tears if he still saw you, if he still remembered your name, if he still cared about the promises he once whispered to your heart. I have been in those exact trenches myself. I have questioned my hearing, wondered if I misunderstood the path, doubted whether I was truly called or simply delusional. But every single time without fail, God eventually revealed that the silence was not abandonment or forgetfulness. It was construction, divine construction happening beneath the surface where I could not see it. He was building capacity in me that I did not possess before. He was stretching my spirit beyond its previous limits. He was strengthening the foundations of who I was becoming, so that when the blessing finally arrived, I would not crumble under its weight. And now, chosen one, he is doing the exact same work in your life whether you recognize it or not. You are not behind schedule. You are not forgotten in the cosmic shuffle. You are not overlooked by a God too busy with more important matters. You are being positioned with surgical precision. This is why some doors did not open earlier when you desperately pushed on them. This is why certain relationships ended abruptly without explanation or closure. This is why you felt isolated and alone when you needed support the most. It was all divine classroom, spiritual training that felt like punishment, but was actually preparation. Heaven was preparing you for the weight of what you are now ready to carry, blessings that would have crushed an earlier version of you. Chosen one. You may not realize this yet because you're still too close to see the full picture, but your obedience in hidden seasons has accumulated what I call spiritual equity. Heaven keeps meticulous records that earth does not see or value. Every time you stayed kind when cruelty struck your heart, and you had every right to retaliate. Every time you forgave, instead of retaliating and keeping score. Every time you kept going forward when life offered you no applause, no recognition, no validation. These moments were not wasted or forgotten. They became currency in the unseen realm, deposits in a spiritual account that is now maturing into tangible, supernatural funding. Anointed One, the resources assigned to your name are no longer pending or under review. They are active, released, moving toward you like a river that has finally been allowed to flow after a dam was removed. I know this with certainty because I have lived the precise moment when waiting turns into release, when persistent prayer turns into visible manifestation, when quiet endurance turns into public elevation. And the signs around you confirm this transition is happening now. Your sudden clarity about next steps, your rising inner strength that surprises even you, the unexpected peace that keeps touching your mind when circumstances say you should be anxious. These are all indicators that God is bringing you into a funded future, a future backed by heaven's unlimited resources. And this is not ordinary funding that provides temporary relief. This is not a small breakthrough that solves one problem. This is transformational provision that changes everything. This is legacy-shaping provision that affects generations. This is generational shifting provision, the kind that rearranges everything attached to your name and everyone connected to your bloodline. Chosen One, heaven does not fund noise or hype or performance. Heaven funds necessity, destiny, and purpose. Heaven funds those who survive deserts without losing their oil, those who maintain their anointing even when nothing around them confirms they are chosen. And you, Anointed One, have proven beyond doubt that your heart can carry what your calling requires. You have demonstrated faithfulness when no one was looking. You have maintained integrity when shortcuts were available. You have stayed soft when life tried to harden you. This is why the pressure has increased recently, why the spiritual intensity has felt overwhelming. Pressure always precedes release in the kingdom. Pressure confirms proximity to breakthrough. Pressure reveals that the spiritual vault assigned your name is beginning to open. The seals are being broken. The doors are being unlocked. And what was stored for an appointed time is now being transferred to your account. Chosen One, the shift has already begun whether you see it or not. There is a holy weight resting on this moment, the kind that only appears when heaven is preparing to unveil something long promised, something that has been maturing in secret. If your spirit has been restless lately, if your dreams have been louder and more vivid, if your inner world has felt like it is stretching beyond what your current life reflects, that is because God is enlarging the territory within you before He expands the territory around you. He must stretch your internal capacity first, so that when the external blessing arrives, you have room to receive it without being destroyed by it. Anointed One, what you have sensed in your spirit is not imagination or wishful thinking. It is alignment, preparation, confirmation. It is the unmistakable vibration of a funded future drawing near like a train approaching a station. And I need you to hear me with absolute clarity on this point. You are not stepping into a season where God merely repairs what broke and patches up the damage. You are stepping into a season where God recompenses you fully, restores you completely, rewrites the story with such precision that even the parts you never understood will suddenly reveal themselves as necessary pieces of divine architecture that was being built all along. Chosen One, there were chapters in your life you thought were completely wasted. Years that felt swallowed by disappointment, frustration, and confusion. Moments where you tried desperately to force outcomes that kept slipping through your fingers like water. I know that experience intimately because I have lived it. I spent entire seasons thinking I had ruined my chances forever, lost my divine timing, or fallen too far behind for anything meaningful to emerge from the wreckage. Yet every single time without exception, God eventually revealed that what I thought was stagnation was actually strategy. What looked like delay was actually development. What felt like punishment was actually protection. He was hiding me from exposure I was not ready for. He was refining me through fire I did not understand. He was pruning dead branches so new growth could emerge. He was preserving me from opportunities that would have destroyed me. And he is doing the exact same thing with you, anointed one. Heaven is not late according to some human schedule. Heaven is precise according to divine wisdom. And for the first time in a long time, the timelines of heaven and the timeline of your readiness are beginning to overlap, to intersect, to align. That intersection where divine timing meets spiritual maturity, where heaven's schedule meets your preparation, is precisely where supernatural funding is released in full measure. You may have looked at your life with discouragement and wondered why you were not further ahead by now, why the opportunities you prayed for with tears kept slipping into someone else's hands, why you were always the one giving, supporting, encouraging, pouring into others, but rarely receiving the same in return, why you seemed to be invisible, while others who started after you were being celebrated. These experiences were not punishments from an angry God. They were not signs that you were doing something wrong. They were assessments, tests, evaluations. God was testing the strength of your heart, examining your motives, measuring your endurance under pressure, not because he doubted you or questioned your abilities, but because he intended to entrust you with far more than you ever asked for, more than you dared to dream possible. Chosen one. When God funds a person's future, he first measures their foundation carefully. He checks the structural integrity. He tests the load-bearing capacity. He ensures the foundation can support what he is about to build. And your foundation, though cracked by life's hardships, though weathered by relentless storms, though tested by betrayal and disappointment, has proven unshakable. You have stayed soft and tender when life tried to harden you into cynicism. You have stayed honest and truthful when shortcuts and deception tempted you. You have stayed faithful and consistent when results were completely invisible and no one affirmed your efforts. These are the traits heaven values above talent. These are the traits heaven rewards above gifting. These are the character qualities that qualify you for supernatural funding. Anointed one. The funding coming to you is not merely financial, though financial resources will indeed flow in ways that surprise you. But before that external provision manifests, God is releasing something even more valuable. He is releasing clarity that cuts through confusion like a sword. Clarity that resurrects confidence you thought was dead. Clarity that reveals the next step without fear or hesitation. I remember vividly when God began releasing clarity into my own life after years of confusion. It did not arrive with fireworks or dramatic supernatural encounters. It arrived quietly, subtly, like the way dawn gradually brightens a dark room before you even realize the sun is rising above the horizon. Ideas that have been jumbled suddenly began to make perfect sense. Peace replaced the uncertainty that had tormented me. My inner voice strengthened with authority. And suddenly I knew with unshakable confidence which direction I had been prepared to walk into all along. You're entering that same clarity now. Chosen one. The fog is lifting. The confusion is dissolving. The path is becoming visible. Supernatural funding begins in the spirit long before it appears in the physical realm. Heaven makes announcements through intuition, dreams, sudden unexplainable peace, unexpected boldness, divine restlessness, and the unraveling of old desires that no longer match your destiny. These are signs that provision is moving toward you, not away from you. And here's what you must understand with your whole heart. the opposition you faced recently, the strange resistance that seemed to come from nowhere, the sudden distractions that tried to pull your focus, the emotional pressure that felt overwhelming. These were signs of proximity, not danger. These were indicators that you were getting close to breakthrough, not evidence that you were failing. When you are close to breakthrough, everything in the spiritual realm tries to pull you back into old versions of yourself, old patterns, old thinking, old limitations. Not because you are weak or failing, but because you are transforming into someone new, someone upgraded, someone the enemy fears. I have lived through that internal battle many times in my journey. When elevation drew near, old wounds suddenly resurfaced that I thought were healed. Old fears whispered lies I thought I had overcome. Old habits tried to grip me with strength I thought they had lost, not because I was spiritually weak, but because I was shedding identities that could not cross into the next season with me. Old wineskins cannot hold new wine. Old structures cannot support new levels. Anointed one, you are shedding old identities right now, whether you realize it or not. This is why your appetite has changed for things that used to satisfy you. This is why certain relationships feel misaligned and uncomfortable. This is why conversations that once comforted you now leave you feeling empty and drained. God is systematically removing what cannot hold the weight of your next level. He is clearing out what would contaminate the new thing. He is creating space for what belongs in your future. Chosen one, you are entering a realm of provision where effort multiplies supernaturally, where timing aligns itself without you manipulating it, where people show up at the exact moment you need them, without you networking or begging, where doors open before you even knock, before you even know they exist. That is divine funding in action. That is supernatural favor manifesting. That is God saying clearly, I am backing you, I am endorsing you, I am elevating you. But hear this critical truth. Divine funding does not move through chaos or confusion. It moves through alignment. It flows through peace. It manifests through order. And the alignment in your life right now is not accidental or coincidental. It is a direct result of every season you survived, every lesson you absorbed, every tear you prayed through, every moment you chose faith over fear. You have been prepared through pressure. You have been tested through trials. You have been stretched through suffering. And now you are becoming a version of yourself that can stew with the blessing without losing your identity, without being corrupted by success, without forgetting where you came from. Anointed one, the future you are stepping into will not resemble the terrain you walked through to get here. The wilderness was for your training, developing survival skills you did not know you needed. The waiting was for your strengthening, building spiritual muscle that cannot be built any other way. But the fulfillment, this next unfolding, is for your revealing. Heaven is about to make visible what you have carried invisibly for years. What you held in secret will be confirmed in public. What you believe by faith will manifest in fact. And here's the part that may surprise you. The shift will begin quietly, almost gently at first. Not explosive or dramatic, but steady like a dawn that keeps expanding until you realize the whole sky has changed color. You will see small alignments before big ones. Unexpected yes from people who previously said no. Conversations that opened doors you did not know existed. People will remember your name at the exact moment favor is needed. Ideas that drop into your spirit with divine clarity. Opportunities that require no striving, only stepping forward in obedience. Chosen one. Supernatural funding often enters your life disguised as favor, as clarity, as timing, as connections. Money may be part of it eventually, but it is never the beginning of it. The beginning is always spiritual first. The beginning is always God whispering now. The beginning is always alignment forming step by step. And I need you to know this deeply. It is not happening because you are perfect or sinless. It is happening because you were faithful even when faithfulness brought no reward. You kept your heart tender when life tried to harden it. You kept your spirit watchful when circumstances said to give up. You kept walking forward, even when discouragement pulled at your feet like weights. You kept believing even when hope felt thin and fragile. Those private victories, those hidden obediences, those secret sacrifices are why heaven is moving publicly in your direction now. Anointed one. This is also the season where God begins restoring what was unjustly taken from you, not just in quantity, but in quality. Time you thought was wasted will return as supernatural acceleration. Opportunities you lost will return upgraded and better. Relationships that were removed will make perfect sense in hindsight, and clarity will flood areas where confusion once lived and ruled. God is not returning you to where you were before the loss. He is advancing you into what you were always meant to reach, into the original plan that was interrupted but never canceled. Chosen one, this next stretch of your journey is marked by supernatural ease, not the absence of all challenges, but the presence of grace that makes the path smoother than it has been. You will notice tasks feel lighter, even when they are still difficult. Decisions feel clearer, even when options are complex. Your steps feel guided, even when the path is unfamiliar. The confusion that once surrounded your direction will lift like fog burning off a morning sun. The heaviness that once sat in your chest like a stone will dissolve like salt in water. Because when heaven funds your future, heaven also escorts you into it. Heaven provides the resources and the roadmap, the provision and the direction, the blessing and the wisdom to steward it well. And let me tell you something from my own story that might encourage your heart. When God begins to move like this in someone's life, it often does not feel dramatic or sensational. It feels right. It feels peaceful. It feels like the internal tension you carried for years suddenly loosens its grip. It feels like the way home feels after a long journey. Familiar, steady, undeniable. You do not have to convince yourself it is real. You simply know. Anointed one. Everything you endured prepared you to carry this blessing without shaking, without fear, without losing yourself. Everything you learned in the valley has positioned you to rise to the mountaintop without falling. And everything you surrendered in seasons of pruning has opened the door for heaven to now pour freely without obstruction. The alignment is real and tangible. The spiritual momentum is building like a wave gathering force. And the provision that once seemed distant is approaching with divine precision and perfect timing. Chosen one. The next signs that appear in your life will not be random coincidences. They will be markers, signals, witnesses that heaven has indeed begun funding your future in full. And once it begins, nothing and no one, no resistance, no delay, no confusion, no human decision, no demonic interference can stop what God has already set in motion by His sovereign will. The blessing is not coming someday. The blessing has begun. Walk forward with reverence. Walk forward with confidence. You are not entering your next season empty-handed. You are stepping into it funded, backed, endorsed, and carried by the God who preserved you for this exact moment in history. There comes a point on every divine journey where the promise is no longer a distant idea, but a living presence in your spirit. And yet the manifestation still feels just beyond reach, just past the horizon. This is the part most people never talk about, honestly. The long stretch between revelation and fulfillment. The quiet middle where your faith no longer has the thrill of the beginning or the relief of the ending. Anointed one. Heaven saw you in that stretch. Heaven watched you carry expectations that seemed heavy on some days and invisible on others. And heaven recorded every moment you remained faithful, even when nothing seemed to move, even when progress felt non-existent, even when doubt whispered that you had imagined the whole thing. I know that place intimately because I have lived in it longer than I care to remember. I have lived in the tension of knowing God spoke something clearly, feeling it burn in my chest like fire, watching signs confirm direction, and still waking up to the same circumstances day after day after day. I have stood in that hallway between what was and what will be, between the promise and the manifestation. And in that place, I learned something that changed everything for me. The waiting is not empty time. The waiting is not punishment for something I did wrong. The waiting is where God builds a kind of endurance that can hold a blessing without collapsing under its weight. Chosen one, you have been in that sacred place whether you recognize it or not. Not stuck, but prepared. Not forgotten, but strengthened. Not overlooked, but fortified. You did not always feel strong during those days. Sometimes you felt weak, fragile, ready to break. But strength was being formed in you, in the mundane moments, in the unremarkable days, in the mornings when you got up even though your heart felt tired and your hope felt depleted, in the nights you prayed even when your words felt thin and powerless, in the conversations where you encouraged others while quietly wondering when your own breakthrough would finally arrive. These moments were not wasted. They became spiritual muscle. They became evidence of your readiness. Anointed one, what heaven is releasing now required a version of you that did not exist before the waiting began. And only time, holy time, intentional time, could carve that version out of you. That season when you felt suspended in midair, when you felt like you were circling the same ground endlessly, when every step seemed small and insignificant. Those were the days heaven used to anchor you in faith rather than emotion, because faith that depends on excitement is shallow and collapses quickly, but faith that survives drought becomes unshakable and immovable. I remember a morning when I woke up with nothing left to feel emotionally. I was not angry at God. I was not hopeful about the future. I was not discouraged about my circumstances. I was simply empty, numb, going through motions. And in that emptiness, God met me, not through a dramatic sign, not through an audible voice, but through a peace that settled without reason or explanation. It was in that quiet at my most ordinary that I realized heaven does some of its greatest work without spectacle. The most profound transformations happen in silence. Anointed one, you have had similar moments, days where nothing looked different to the outside world, yet something inside you whispered, hold on. That whisper was not you. It was the one who promised to finish what he started. Chosen one, endurance is not glamorous. It does not shout or draw attention. It happens in the background of your life, in the places where no one claps for you, where no one knows what you are carrying. And yet endurance is the very ground where miracles root themselves deeply. Breakthrough comes to those who remain even when their heart wants to flee. Provision comes to those who choose trust when clarity is still forming. Divine funding flows toward those who have proven they can be consistent even when their circumstances are wildly inconsistent. This is part of why heaven has chosen you. You are not here because you never struggled. You are here because you kept walking. You did not abandon the promise, even when it seemed to abandon you. You did not let bitterness poison your hope. You did not let delay redefine your identity. Even when you questioned the timing, you never questioned God's character. An anointed one, that distinction carries massive weight in the unseen realm. There were days when your faith felt like a thin thread about to snap, yet you kept holding it. Days when blessings for others triggered wounds you thought had healed, yet you kept believing. Days when you looked at your life and wondered how a future as great as the one God whispered could possibly emerge from where you stood. And still you kept showing up with integrity, with softness, with courage. That is the kind of heart heaven funds. That is the kind of character heaven backs. That is the kind of faithfulness heaven rewards. Chosen one. Endurance has matured you in ways you cannot fully see yet. It taught you when to speak and when to be silent. It taught you how to discern voices accurately, your own, the enemy's, and God's. It taught you that consistency is a spiritual force, not merely a personality trait. And now, because you remain consistent when nothing felt consistent around you, the promise has ripened. What once felt distant is now scheduled. What once felt impossible is now aligned. What once felt delayed is now right on time. Anointed one. You are standing in the holy moment where silence turns into certainty and promise turns into motion. What was once hidden beneath years of endurance is now rising into sight. Heaven has already released a command over your life. The vault is open, the path is lit, and the future that felt distant is now stepping into your present with divine precision. This is not the beginning of your blessing. This is the unveiling of what has been maturing for far longer than you knew. Walk forward with reverence. Walk forward with confidence. You are not entering your next season empty-handed. You are stepping into it funded, backed, endorsed, and carried by the God who preserved you for this exact moment. Remain faithful. Stay aligned. Keep your spirit open to the gentle nudges that guide you into prepared provision. What is coming will confirm everything your heart has been sensing. Your future is unfolding now.